Daniel Carter had always considered himself a man of honor, a devoted husband, a diligent father. He was known among his peers as a responsible and reliable individual, tirelessly working to provide for his family. But unbeknownst to him, dark currents flowed fiercely just beneath the surface of his seemingly stable life. The woman he loved, Elise, who coiled around the family as its nurturing center, harbored a secret that would soon shatter his world to pieces. The night started like any other. Dinner was served at the precise time Daniel had established over the years, the aroma of grilled chicken filling their modest dining room. His two young children, Emma and Jake, were like little sons, filling the space with laughter and innocent chatter. As he participated in their banter, Daniel noticed Elise's distracted demeanor. A small, nonchalant smile sometimes graced her lips. He pushed the thought away, telling himself she was simply overwhelmed from work. However, a gnawing doubt continued to plague him. The signs had been there for months. Elise began coming home late from work more frequently, citing meetings or deadlines that required her attention. Daniel would watch her through half-closed eyelids as she would slip into bed, the faint smell of another man's cologne clinging to her skin like an unforgiving reminder of betrayal. Still, Daniel dismissed his suspicions, convincing himself it was just paranoia, an unfounded jealousy. One fateful evening, while picking up groceries, a chance encounter would cast a shadow over everything he had trusted. As he reached for a carton of milk, his phone buzzed with a message notification. Baffled, he looked at the screen and saw a photo sent by a friend. His heart sank when he saw a snapshot of Elise, arms snug around the waist of someone Daniel recognized all too well. Her coworker, Mark. Mark had been just a friend, the charming type that anyone could mistake for a reliable ally. But in that instant, Daniel understood. This was no ordinary friendship. Fingers trembling, Daniel confronted Elise when she returned home. The confrontation was raw and confronting. He could see the fear creeping into her eyes, an acknowledgement of the defense she was desperately trying to build. The reality of her betrayal splashed hot against the walls of their home. "I'll be at a hotel with my AP while you stay home and take care of the kids," she spat with venom, the implication hitting harder than any physical blow. The words echoed through Daniel's mind, saturating the air with suffocating tension. Anger surged within him, raw and unfiltered. The emotional tapestry he had woven hung by a thread, with each intimate moment they had shared now transformed into a dishonorable facade. From that moment, the tumultuous monster of betrayal erupted, unleashing fury within him that he hadn't known existed. He felt a surge of dark determination. Rather than collapsing under the weight of grief, Daniel ignited a firestorm within. The illusion of the life he once cherished flickered away, but it took mere seconds for him to accept that he could not remain a victim. Instead, he plotted revenge with meticulous care, wanting to ensure that everyone who harmed him faced the consequences. Days morphed into nights as he commenced a campaign of retaliation, each strike calculated and cunning. With the help of a lawyer who believed in his cause, he delved deep into the financial ruin Elise had caused. Unbeknownst to her, he began monitoring their joint accounts, quickly discovering beyond the spending on luxuries that stung, there were funds allocated toward hotel stays and romantic dinners with Mark. One early morning, Daniel accessed their accounts with steely resolve. Each transaction became fuel for his fire. He began blocking joint credit cards, limiting Elise's access to funds, and freezing their assets in a gambit to unravel her carefully spun web. As each day passed, Daniel watched her slowly descend into chaos. The luxurious lifestyle she had come to expect was crumbling, and he savored each moment like fine wine. Daniel honed his approach. He collected evidence, photographs, and text messages that would humiliate Elise publicly, tearing down the facade she had so artfully constructed. Friends would soon know the truth about the deceitful woman they admired. At work, Mark would watch his reputation erode as whispers began swirling about his entanglement with another man's wife. The very pillars of life that sustained their narcissistic pursuits would begin to collapse under the weight of their dishonor. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived, set against the backdrop of a company gala, where Daniel seized the opportunity to execute his plan. He strategically timed his entrance, calculating precisely when Elise would take the stage to deliver a speech. His presence swung the room into an orienting shock. With a calm confidence, he strode forward, holding a printed banner visible enough for all to see. As Elise's words faltered mid-sentence, the audience's curious gazes turned from her to him. "Elise Parker, you're just an unfaithful wife." His voice cut through the tepid air like a knife. A collective gasp surged through the crowd. Shock pulsed like electricity. "I think they deserve to know who you really are and who you've been spending your nights with." As he unveiled photos, the realization erupted, and he saw the faces flip from reverence to disdain. Laughter broke out, punctuating the distance between Elise and those who had adored her. Laughter that became the soundtrack to her defeat. He felt triumphant, not merely in the vindication of his pain, but in the realization of his own strength. The moral high ground was his, even amidst the chaos. As chaotic whispers ricocheted through the room, Elise clawed for his attention, but Daniel remained steadfast. Silence descended as she attempted to piece together a narrative that would save her face. But it was too late. The truth had clawed its way free. In that moment, the burden felt lighter. The chains of humiliation shattered. There would be no reconciliation. He had stepped clearly into the realm of justice. Elise's desperate eyes darted around the room, searching for allies, but all she found were faces twisted in disbelief and judgment. "Daniel, please," she stammered, the veneer of her confidence melting away, exposing the panic beneath. The crowd, once friends and colleagues, had transformed into a tribunal, observing her downfall with a mixture of intrigue and pity. Daniel could feel the weight of their collective gaze, every whisper igniting the flames of his vindication. "Please." "You thought that lengthening your nights with Mark would go unnoticed?" He stepped closer, his voice low yet laced with venom. "You thought you could betray our family and still demand my respect?" The bemusement that had graced her features turned quickly to anger, the rage barely concealed behind her feigned tears. "Don't do this to our children," she pleaded, her tone softening momentarily as if trying to draw on the parenting bond that once united them. But that connection felt like a distant memory, as Daniel's resolve hardened. This was not just about him. This was about showing their children that integrity was paramount, that betrayal would not flourish unchallenged. He felt empowered by the weight of their shared history, now twisted into fodder for his newfound strength. "I'm doing this for them, Elise. They deserve to know the truth about their mother," Daniel countered evenly, his heart racing with a mixture of exhilaration and pulse-quickening intensity. The chorus of snickers and murmurs from the crowd solidified Daniel's purpose. They were no longer just victims of their relationship. They now bore witness to the unraveling of Elise's carefully guarded existence. "Daniel, you're making a mistake," she screamed, her voice cracking. Ironically, it was too late for regrets. That ship had sailed amidst romantic whispers and hidden rendezvous. As she fumbled for composure, he watched the facade fade, revealing the toxic reality of someone who had thrived on deception for too long. With each moment under the harsh, revealing lights, her dignity slipped away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of exposure. Daniel turned and surveyed the crowd, reveling in the realization that he had transformed his pain into something relentless and strong. He had become the architect of his own liberation, while Elise quickly became the exhibit at this merciless spectacle. "Isn't it tragic?" he demanded, addressing the listeners. A woman who had everything, a home, a family, a loving husband, threw it all away for a cheap thrill? What does that say about her character? The room reverberated with nods and agreeing murmurs as a mass of emotions spilled forth, encapsulating the raw betrayal he had endured. Ruthless satisfaction gripped Daniel's heart as he forged ahead. He had finally stepped into the power he had long denied himself, wielding the truth like a weapon. "Look closely, everyone," he declared, holding Elise's gaze, now filled with fury and desperation. "This is what happens when loyalty is shattered. This is what happens when people put their selfish desires above their families. This is who she really is." In that moment, he spoke not just to the assembly, but to the very fabric of their shared life, demanding an accounting for every moment he had cherished with her. Even as the final nails were driven home, Daniel could see the ripple effects of his revelation playing out. Mark slinked away from the crowd, humiliation etched deep across his face, realizing that the affair had somehow entangled him in this public disgrace. Elise's heart sank as friends she had once believed would stand by her turned away, eyes clouded with disdain. For Daniel, each reaction was a blow to Elise, a confession of strength and resolve that he had rekindled within himself. The stakes had never felt higher, but surrender was not a choice. He was determined to tear down the narrative Elise had constructed, brick by brick. As Elise attempted to regain the upper hand, she made one last, desperate effort. "You'll regret this, Daniel. The kids will blame you. You'll never replace me." The words were laced with the venom of someone who could barely grasp the reality she had constructed. But Daniel stood firm. Unwavering in his resolve, he was undeterred by her threats. "No, Elise," he replied, his tone steely calm. "This moment will be a lesson for them. They will see their father standing up for himself. They will learn never to allow anyone to trample on their self-worth." The finality of his words rang through the auditorium, marking the death knell of their marriage. Walking away from her pleading stare and the shocked expression of the onlookers felt like walking through fire. But on the other side, he could feel liberation wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. He had taken control, and with such clarity, he could finally see a path forward. The divorce parallel to this public humiliation would become Daniel's avenue to create an entirely new life, built on principles of autonomy and support. Armed with evidence and newfound resolve, he embarked on legal battles that would redefine his family's future. No sharing of assets, no parenting under stale pretenses, no bewildered glances that would diminish the quality of life he envisioned for Emma and Jake. Each motion filed in court served as a documented reminder of the distasteful behavior he was putting behind him. He demanded compensation for each hidden affair, for each dollar misappropriated, and each moment of denial he had suffered. By the time they reached the negotiation stages, Daniel had solidified his position, not just as a survivor, but as a formidable adversary. They would not heal from this, not together. Instead, he envisioned a future for himself, one where he built a home that not only welcomed embrace, but thrived in its own vitality. A life where respect ruled and love wasn't a weak link to be exploited, but a fortress to be cherished. Ultimately, he wouldn't just walk away from Elise's attempts to reunite, he would smash those hopes underfoot. Daniel Carter had emerged from the smithy of betrayal, crafted anew, ready to mold his destiny with newfound strength and relentless ambition. There would be no reconciliation, no second chances for those who toyed with trust and shattered it to pieces. The lesson echoed intensely. Some wounds, like Elise's betrayal, would only deepen over time, never healing as they deserved. Daniel was ready to embrace that truth and leave Elise in the ashes of her own making. As Daniel maneuvered through the daunting landscape of divorce proceedings, he remained fixated on the horizon of his newly imagined life. The legal battles were intense, stretching over months, but each moment only reinforced his resolve. He pored over documents, compiled evidence, and worked closely with a legal team that admired his tenacity. More importantly, he sought to protect his children, ensuring they would be shielded from the fallout of Elise's indiscretions. The courtroom was a battleground, with every motion filed revealing the extent of Elise's malevolence. During the initial hearings, her charm dissolved as the truth surged forward like a tidal wave. Daniel vividly remembered one particular day when Elise, adorned in a meticulously selected outfit, tried to present herself as a victim. She argued her case with tears, attempting to pull at the jurors' heartstrings. But each sob fell flat when juxtaposed with the evidence Daniel had gathered. The unwanted texts, the hotel receipts, and the testimonies of friends who had witnessed her infidelity. In those moments, he found strength. Each piece of evidence was not just a lifeline. It was a declaration of his right to reclaim his life from the ashes. It felt strangely liberating to dismantle the narrative Elise had spun around their family. A comfort in knowing that the truth would ring louder than her lies. "Your Honor," he would state firmly, each word coated in determination, "my children deserve stability and honesty. They should not have to bear the burden of their mother's choices. The funds she squandered in her betrayal are funds that should have gone toward their future." The courtroom buzzed with murmurs, the gravity of his words resonating amidst the figureheads and onlookers. Daniel felt accomplished as he articulated his case, knowing he was fighting for more than himself. He was advocating for his very family. Elise's tactics soon became predictable, yet still unsettling. She would attempt to frame him as the villain, accusing him of neglect and coldness, while trying to paint her infidelity as a misguided plea for love. It alternated between anger and sobbing apologies, yet every flash of emotion only deepened Daniel's resolve. He had endured long enough. Through every twist and turn, he emerged more resilient. Amidst these trials, something remarkable occurred. Daniel reconnected with friends who had rallied around him after the public revelation of Elise's betrayal. Slowly, his social circles widened. He engaged with others who had overcome similar betrayals. The shared camaraderie spurred him onward, igniting a sense of community and support. He rediscovered laughter, a feeling long lost amid home chaos. The warmth that enveloped him was refreshing and invigorating, helping to heal the wounds that Elise's betrayal had inflicted. One evening, he ventured to a small gathering where he met Mara, a single mother who possessed an unmistakable strength. Their initial conversations were simple, a shared laugh or a whispered joke, but they rapidly deepened. Mara understood the frustrations of navigating life post-divorce, and with her encouragement, he began to see a glimmer of hope for a life beyond past pains. In her eyes, Daniel witnessed understanding and kindness. She became a confidant as they shared their journeys, both marred by betrayal but resilient in their pursuit of happiness. What began as tentative friendships elevated into something exciting, a bond rooted in shared experiences, respect, and admiration. Their connection was palpable, becoming the lifeline Daniel didn't know he needed. During this exciting yet daunting phase of his new life, Daniel's resolve in the courtroom persisted. Despite the emotional balm Mara provided, he knew the endgame required unwavering focus. Driven solely by the desire to ensure his children's future, he strode forth with poise. He never allowed personal feelings to interfere in front of the judge, no matter how intense Elise's accusations became. As the final hearing approached, Daniel's confidence soared. He spent countless hours preparing for the courtroom showdown that would finalize their divorce, a process he envisioned as the last imprint of Elise's decisions sealing her fate. He would lock down every financial aspect to prevent her from maneuvering any last-minute manipulations, ensuring she had no ground to stand on. The day arrived, and as Daniel stood near the entrance of the sprawling courtroom, he felt an unfamiliar sensation pulse through him, a blend of anxiety and exhilaration. The stakes had never felt higher, and he held his breath as Elise walked in. Her familiar presence invoked anger, but this time it came lined with a stern determination. He would not bend. He would channel every ounce of his hurt into a narrative of resilience. As the session opened, Daniel listened intently to Elise's lawyer, who launched an aggressive movement to contest Daniel's claims. But Daniel was prepared. He knew every detail of their finances, details Elise had underestimated. He methodically countered each argument, laying bare evidence in a manner so compelling it left even the judge shifting uncomfortably in his seat. Then, at the zenith of the trial, Elise attempted one last-ditch effort to tug at emotions, weaving a story of regret and heartbreak for the life they once had. But Daniel interjected, standing tall like an immovable wall. "Elise," he countered, a coolness in his demeanor belied by the volcanic emotions churning beneath. "Regret only carries weight when it's tied to meaningful actions. You've used this court to ridicule our children's honor. You can't speak of love while having personified betrayal in the very act of your selfish decisions." The courtroom fell silent. A pin could have dropped, the tension palpable. Elise's eyes flashed with fury, yet Daniel felt a wave of satisfaction at finally standing firm against the tidal wave of her contrived remorse. He continued unabated, relaying poignant moments they had shared, those memories now tainted, ripe with betrayal. As the gavel came down, Daniel emerged with full custody of Emma and Jake, each child's future anchored in truth, safety, and emotional nurture. The follow-up proceedings would entangle financial obligations, but those felt secondary, a necessary formality as he realized the victory had already been won. He would indeed walk away from Elise's grasp. Leaving the courthouse, Daniel felt lighter, like the weight of the world had been lifted. His transformation was complete. He had forged something altogether remarkable from the ashes of loss. In that moment, he understood that out of betrayal and disillusionment, new possibilities often emerged, spurred by unwavering determination and an unwillingness to reside in the shadows of someone else's decisions. With Mara beside him, ready to explore this fresh page, Daniel knew he had become the embodiment of resilience, savvy enough to navigate the zigs and zags of life, pursuing happiness with the fervor of one who had once lost everything, yet now was set to gain so much more. The weeks following the courtroom's decision felt surreal for Daniel. He had emerged victorious from the wreckage of his marriage, and the air buzzed with a sense of newfound freedom while pressing forward into the intricacies of single fatherhood. Yet beneath that victory lingered shadows, the unhealed wounds of betrayal, the memories of Elise's deception still residing in the corners of his mind. Though the court had granted him custody of Emma and Jake, the reality of becoming a solo parent loomed large. Mornings were hectic. Juggling breakfast, packing lunches, and getting the kids ready for school was a far cry from the seamless routine they once shared. Evenings were marked by fatigue after balancing the responsibilities of work and parenting. Yet Daniel embraced each moment with a sense of purpose. He filled the gaps left by Elise's absence with laughter and love. His relationship with Mara flourished organically. They started to share more than just casual conversations. They began spending weekends together, creating new memories intertwined with laughter and moments of vulnerability. Every time he saw Mara interact with his children, he felt the warmth of possibility growing more inviting. Her patience shone through as she playfully engaged with Emma and Jake, helping them with homework and introducing new activities that brought them closer as a family unit. One Saturday, they ventured to the local park for a picnic. Sunlight streamed through the branches of aging trees, casting playful shadows on the grass. Daniel laid the blanket while Mara prepared sandwiches. Emma and Jake slotted themselves into the grassy world around them, weaving paths through clusters of laughter as they chased after birds and rolled in the grass. The sight brought a smile to his face, one born not just from relief, but from a profound happiness he thought had long dimmed. "Daniel!" Mara called, pulling him from the reverie as she tossed a sandwich in his direction, teasing him as he fumbled to catch it. "You've got to stop zoning out on me. The world's out here, waiting to be lived." "Guess I'm still getting used to this dynamic," he responded, an airy laugh escaping his lips. He looked at her, intrigue sparkling in their shared banter. "It feels good, though." And it did. Each moment with Mara was a reminder that life could be vibrant again. Though still grappling with the memories of Elise's betrayal, Daniel felt a sense of renewal each time he connected with Mara. Laughter returned to their household. He cherished watching as laughter erupted between the kids and her. She fit seamlessly with his family, as though she had always been part of it. However, the residual pain was not easily shed. One afternoon, while cleaning out the attic, Daniel stumbled across a box filled with relics of his and Elise's once cherished life. Old photographs, keepsakes, and love letters embodied memories that now felt tainted by betrayal. As he rummaged through, his heart twisted painfully, igniting a mixture of anger and sorrow. The memories were seductive, reminding him of the times when trust reigned unchallenged. Standing amidst the debris of his former life, Daniel understood he had yet to confront some of those feelings. Anger flared, a long-held bitterness aimed toward Elise for shattering what they had built. For every moment lost, every lie that spun them into a web of deceit. Daniel had fought valiantly to reclaim himself, yet the memories still held a dark power over his heart. When Mara came in to check on him, she caught a glimpse of the turmoil set against his features. "Hey, what's wrong?" she asked gently, drawing nearer. The concern in her voice pulled at him, beckoning him to reveal the pain he had kept at bay. "I found this," he murmured, gesturing toward the box. "It's like being pulled back into a storm I thought I had just escaped." Mara knelt beside him, probing deeper into the world of collectibles that once brought him joy. You don't have to keep these," she said softly. "They should not have power over you anymore." Daniel inhaled sharply. Her words struck him with clarity. He had spent so long wallowing in sorrow that he hadn't envisioned moving past those remnants. A ferocious fury ignited in him, startling him with its intensity. "I can't believe I ever let them mean this much," he replied, his resolve strengthening. With steady hands, he began to toss the memories aside, one by one. The pain of lost moments intertwined with anger streaked through this cathartic release, a purging of Elise's hold over him. For each photo and note he discarded, he felt lighter, unshackling himself from the weight of betrayal. Mara watched him, fascinated and proud, appreciating the symbolic act of Daniel finally taking command over his past. As the box emptied, he felt triumph and relief washing over him. "I need to be free," he surrendered, his voice a quiet resolve wrapped in newfound empowerment. "Exactly," she affirmed, her gentle squeeze on his shoulder firm but comforting. "You're not that person anymore. You've built something entirely new." As they left the attic behind, Daniel understood the importance of moving forward. It hadn't been about letting go of the past entirely, but rather finding a delicate balance between honoring the lessons of his experiences while creating space for new beginnings. In the following weeks, as their bond deepened, Daniel sensed within himself a resurgence of what felt like hope. He and Mara explored new depths to their relationship, venturing to previous events they had shied away from out of fear, now hand in hand and fortified by the scars each had introduced to their lives. But just as the warmth of healing blossomed, shadows began to return. Elise, emboldened by her disastrous attempt to manipulate the court, resurfaced at the most unexpected moment. She called Daniel out of the blue, her voice dripping with false innocence. "Can we talk?" she urged. I need to explain." The very idea ripped open the recently sealed wounds. Daniel's heart raced, uncertainty surging through him. But instead of retreating, he recognized this moment as yet another confrontation with the specter of his past. This was not a moment for retreat, nor was it negotiation. It was a chance to assert himself firmly, to show Elise that her reign over him had ended. "Talk? About what?" he shot back, his tone not wavering. "There's nothing left to discuss. You made your choices. Please just give me a chance," she insisted, her voice cracking, a hint of desperation creeping in. "For the kids." Daniel clenched his jaw, hesitating for a mere second. He thought of Emma and Jake, their innocent charm, often twisted into tools of manipulation by Elise. "This isn't about the kids. It's about you trying to salvage a world that you shattered. I won't stand for it any longer." His refusal caught her off guard. Daniel felt almost serene in accepting this confrontation, ready to dismantle the last lingering threat to his fortress of resilience built around himself and his children. "Just stay out of my life," he stated firmly, the weight of each word percussion against the trepidation dancing on the line separating their worlds. He hung up, exhaling a steady breath as he turned toward Mara, who had stood by watching the exchange unfold. Her eyes were filled with admiration and respect. "You did what you needed to do," she assured him. "You've wrestled with ghosts, and that's no easy victory." "I'm finally strong enough to face my past," he affirmed, taking comfort in her words. Haunted moments began to recede. This was the turning point he had craved. No more lingering ties, no more excuses. It was time for Daniel to redefine his notion of family as a guidepost of health, clarity, and unconditional love, untainted by the echoes of bitterness. Together, they embraced a horizon unmarred by Elise's shadow, a future illuminated by possibilities undreamed, with laughter and love flourishing as the ultimate testament to his newfound strength. Daniel understood that though personal growth could become an arduous journey, he was now stepping boldly into a more hopeful tomorrow, hand in hand with Mara and the children, nurturing the life he had long sought. As the days turned into weeks, Daniel found himself navigating the new normal of blended family life, and it was exhilarating. The tension with Elise faded into the background, replaced by the heartwarming chaos of parenting alongside Mara. Emma and Jake thrived, relishing the nurturing atmosphere that combined Daniel's steadfast parenting with Mara's compassionate approach. Laughter frequently echoed through their home, weaving a fresh thread into the fabric of their lives. Every weekend became an opportunity for adventure, from trips to the beach to movie marathons on rainy days. Daniel reveled in these moments, feeling genuine joy for the first time since Elise's betrayal had rocked his world. He discovered a rejuvenated spirit through the playful antics of the children and the warmth Mara brought to their household. But the specter of Elise lingered still, creeping into their lives like a persistent shadow. Daniel had remained firm in limiting her access to their kids. The fragile peace, however, was punctured when Elise made her play to regain some semblance of control. She began sending messages, crafting her words into guilt-laden invitations. The kids missed their mother. "Can't you at least let them visit?" Each ping of her message was a bitter reminder of the manipulative games they had played, leading Daniel to feel the familiar twinge of anger flare within him. One evening, after tucking the kids in, Daniel confronted Mara with the phone in his hand, displaying Elise's latest text. "She's at it again," he muttered, frustration threading through his voice as he recounted her demands, each request blaring like a siren in his mind. "How do I handle this without letting her sneak back into our lives?" Mara's expression softened, understanding the predicament all too well. She approached him, wrapping her arms around his waist and leaning into him. "You're the one in control, Daniel. Remind her who the real parent is, the one stepping in and raising your kids day in and day out. You've shown her that respect can't be commanded back." "That's easier said than done," he replied, a mix of vulnerability and frustration spilling into his tone. "She still thinks she can waltz in and out of their lives. It isn't fair to them. Nor should it be fair to you," Mara countered gently. "Their happiness stems from the stability you're creating. You owe it to them and to yourself to prioritize that. You've worked too hard to pretend everything's okay and sweep it under the rug. You just can't let her back into your space." Daniel considered her words, allowing them to sink in. There was wisdom in what she said. He had risen from the ashes of Elsie's betrayal. He had rebuilt his life and their children's, without a shadow of the former life they had led together. But, as much as Elise wanted to manipulate him into compliance, he wouldn't allow her the satisfaction any longer. In the coming days, Daniel crafted a careful reply to Elise, asserting his boundaries with the precision of a sword's edge. "Emma and Jake are perfectly fine," he wrote coldly, "and they're flourishing without the turmoil you created. If you genuinely care about them, you'll respect my decisions moving forward." The emotional turmoil of sending that message felt cathartic, like a purge of anger and hurt accumulated over the years. Daniel felt lighter, empowered by the firm stand he had taken. It was simultaneously daunting and liberating. He hoped to confront Elise with the truth of her choices, rather than keep dancing around a flame that did more harm than good. Yet, he remained aware that her response could be unpredictable. He went into this prepared, knowing she might retaliate to regain leverage. The stakes felt unnervingly high, but even that worry was dwarfed by the reality that he was reclaiming his power. Elise's reply was swift, like a venomous snake striking back with fangs bared. "You're denying them the chance to know their mother. One day they'll resent you for this." Daniel's heart thrummed with irritation, but he remained steadfast. He had committed to protecting his children from the toxic remnants of Elise's choices. Their well-being trumped her attempts at guilt. The following weekend, the family found solace in a well-loved weekend tradition, visiting the local farmers market. With baskets swinging in their hands, they strolled among colorful stalls, bursting with fresh produce and handmade goods. Emma's laughter rang out as she chased Jake between booths, each shriek punctuated by the crisp morning air and the gentle warm light that bathed the entire market in a golden hue. Mara wandered ahead, her fingers brushing against a vendor's wares, her energy resonating with happiness. Daniel paused for a moment, observing the family he had redefined. He felt joy swelling in his heart, a telltale sign that he had transcended his previous trials. The warmth of community enveloped them, every laugh intertwining their lives more deeply. As they turned a corner, Daniel was startled by the sight ahead. There stood Elise, her own basket in hand, with a false, saccharine smile plastered across her face. His heart sank at the sudden intrusion, a visceral need to protect his children from the confrontation that fluttered like a storm cloud above them. "Mara," he whispered urgently, grabbing her hand. "I need you to stay close." "What's going on?" Mara asked, confused at the urgency in his tone. But before Daniel could respond, Elise stepped forward, putting on her best act. "Daniel, look who I found. I was just showing them the new farm stand." "What a cute little family you have here," she exclaimed, her tone strikingly cheerful, as if the dissolving boundaries of their once shared lives didn't exist. Daniel's mind raced, feeling a mixture of anger and disappointment. How could she just intrude on this moment? "This isn't the time, Elise," he stated firmly, doing his best to contain his frustration. "Oh, come on. Can't I just say hello to my children?" Elise's words dripped with false innocence, masked under layers of insincerity that Daniel could smell from a mile away. "Mom?" Emma's voice emerged cautiously, confusion weaving through her tone as she looked between Daniel and Elise. Jake clung to his father's side, his stiffened body sending a clear message of discomfort. "Mama, you're here!" Emma bounded toward Elise, a fleeting excitement dancing in her eyes, but Daniel felt an instinctual need to protect her from the impending letdown that always followed Elise's familiar deceit. "No, honey, let's go over here," Daniel said gently but firmly, guiding Emma toward him to dissipate the moment. "We were just about to pick out some strawberries." "Want to help me carry the basket?" The moment of uncertainty passed, fleeting joy supplanted with confusion. Daniel cast a sidelong glance at Elise, who hadn't anticipated the rejection. A flicker of irritation crossed her features, before dissolving into a mask of calm indifference. She maintained her posture as if she hadn't been momentarily shaken, clearly intent to keep the performance alive. But Daniel was already marching away, feeling empowered by the choice he had made for his family's safety. With remorse thickening the air, he felt the tension in his jaw relax, realizing that the more he engaged, the more he allowed her to intrude on their lives. Later that day, as they headed home, Daniel felt a rush of mixed emotions. "I handled it," he reassured Mara, who had sensed his discomfort. "I'm really trying to set clear boundaries, but it's harder than I imagined." Mara smiled gently, intertwining their fingers. "You did exactly what you needed to do for your children. You're protecting them from the unpredictability of a parent who doesn't uphold their promises." Daniel inhaled deeply, grateful for her support. "You know, I half wonder whether Elise will ever acknowledge the damage she's caused, whether she can change enough to be genuinely good for Emma and Jake." "Change can often feel like a fantasy when someone is stuck in their ways," Mara answered thoughtfully. "But no matter what, you've shown them what a good parent looks like. They'll know they can always count on you." He pondered her words, comforted yet wary. I guess it's up to them to learn what family really means, he replied, determination sparking behind a veil of uncertainty. And to understand that love and trust are earned, not demanded. Soon enough, their lives began to normalize again. Daniel found solace in the rhythm of parenthood, while the shadows of Elise's manipulations began to recede further into the horizon. He reflected on the strength he had cultivated, fortified by Mara's unwavering presence, the laughter of Emma and Jake weaving the fabric of a new life that felt like home. As their family grew closer, Daniel learned an important lesson. Life would always throw curveballs, but amid the uncertainties, he had built a foundation on love, respect, and resilience. The present felt bright, illuminated not by shadow, but by hope, reminding him that even amidst uncertainty, a new beginning was always possible. And beneath it all, Daniel had found empowerment, not only from the battles he'd waged within himself, but also in the connections he nurtured, giving both him and his children a future rich in possibilities, a future that seemed vibrant and full of life now, completely free from the shackles of betrayal. As the weeks went by, Daniel felt the ache of past grievances lessening, replaced by a flow of life that had chocolate-stained smiles and loud laughter echoing through their home. With Mara's warm presence and the kids' joy, he began to realize that he could flourish in this new chapter. But he remained vigilant. He understood the need for maintaining boundaries with Elise. The momentary relapses into chaos were always just around the corner. Yet, amidst that steady progression, Elise's attempts to claw her way back into their lives continued. Each time Daniel thought they had established solid footing, she would send a casual text, often masquerading as concern. "Just checking in. The kids miss me," she would write, or "They can't grow up without knowing their mother," each message bubbling with guilt-inducing undertones. He had learned to develop a steeliness inside, reducing the emotional responses to her provocations. One evening, while they were all in the kitchen preparing dinner, Daniel's phone buzzed again. He braced himself, recognizing the familiar number. Placing the chopping knife aside, he opened the message, his heart racing as he read, "Can we please talk? I want to discuss the kids and their needs without all this tension between us." He turned to Mara, who was watching him closely, sensing a dark cloud beginning to brew. "It's Elise again," he said, his annoyance palpable. "What is she saying?" Mara asked, her focus fully on him, her fiery spirit ready to jump in to defend him if necessary. "She wants to talk about the kids." "Again," he replied, irritation creeping into his voice. "She's claiming they miss her." Mara's brow furrowed. "You know it's just another way for her to manipulate you. Remember what we discussed? The kids are more secure with you, and you need to stick to that. You're their rock." Daniel nodded, her words echoing truthfully. But uncertainty gnawed at him. He refused to become ensnared by Elise's tactics again. Processing his emotions in silence, he decided to respond with a firm boundary. He typed back, "I'm not interested in negotiating. The kids are cared for, that's enough." When he pressed send, a deep knot of tension released in his stomach. He felt lighter somehow, invigorated. Yet, as time passed, unease crept back in, plaguing him. Was he doing the right thing? Could he be too harsh? He shook those thoughts from his head. He had already stated his case and would stick to it. Just a few days later, while Daniel was helping Jake with his homework, the doorbell rang. The sharp sound broke the calm, and instinctively, he felt his stomach tighten. He turned to Mara, who stood a few steps back, her demeanor shifting to one of immediate concern. "Stay close," he instructed, pushing aside the weight of the possibility that it could be Elise again. As he opened the door, his heart sank at the sight before him. Elise stood on the porch, arms crossed defensively. "What are you doing here?" he asked coolly, while his brain raced to manage the emotions swirling within him. "I just wanted to talk," she replied, the attempt at calm in her voice clashing with the storm brewing inside him. "I feel like we're caught in this cycle. It's not fair to the kids." "Fair?" Daniel retorted, incredulous. This is about you wanting to control the narrative again, Elise. The kids are doing well without your persistent interference. She stepped forward, her expression softening slightly, as if in an attempt to channel sympathy, but he willed himself to remain firm. You can't keep them from their mother forever. They're not your pawns, he shot back, the impatience in his words accentuating his frustration. Think about what you've done, Elise. You shattered our lives. This manipulation ends now. The tension thickened in the air as Elise's expression flickered, her mask cracking, revealing a glimpse of the anger simmering beneath her surface. You have no idea what I've sacrificed for them, she said through clenched teeth. Sacrificed? You sacrificed your family for cheap thrills, Daniel snapped, the truth cutting both ways. He had refused to relent even as the confrontation traversed raw emotions. When did you ever prioritize our kids? For a moment, silence filled the gap between them, punctuated only by Daniel's heavy breathing. Elise's defiance began to crumble, hurt flashing across her features, but he wasn't about to relent. He had gathered enough strength and resilience over the past months to handle this. I want what's best for my kids too, he asserted, but your version of best has always been about making you feel good, not about them. It's time to stop pretending. He moved to close the door, a definitive end to their tumultuous exchange, but Elise stepped in front of him to block the exit, desperation creeping into her voice. Daniel, don't shut me out. I just want to be part of their lives. Part of their lives? He scoffed. You've made choices to put your needs first. Leave me and the kids out of it. He pushed past her, roaming deeper into the house. But Elise clung to him, hands grasping at him instinctively. You're being unfair. In an unexpected moment, he felt the warmth of confusion wash over him. Unfair? He echoed incredulously, eyes narrowing as he faced her. How could you even say that after everything you've put us through? Yet beneath his anger, a flicker of sadness emerged, a ghost of the love he had once felt for her. But that love didn't erase the damage she had done. There was no room for it in their new reality, and it hurt to acknowledge that. Their standoff became a tense moment, unyielding in its emotional depth. Daniel's heart raced, caught in a wrestling match between rage and a reluctant wish for resolution. In her eyes, he could see the hint of tears struggling for release. Pain, frustration, maybe even regret. Please, she whispered, voice cracking. Just hear me out. No, he finally declared, staring deeply into her eyes, determined to stand firm despite the storm of their shared history looming over them. We're done here. Elise dropped her gaze, losing much of her previous bravado. For a brief moment, she appeared small and vulnerable, stripped of the power she often wielded like a weapon. Gritting his teeth against the complexities of it all, Daniel knew this was not a battle he could afford to lose. As he stepped back, closing the door between them with resolve, he felt that knot of anxiety crack open again. Turning back to Mara, Daniel felt a mix of anger and heartbreak at the situation he had just faced. I'm so sick of her thinking she has any power, he mumbled, rubbing his temples in exasperation. Mara stepped forward, wrapping her arms around him. You held your ground, she reassured him softly. I did, he agreed hesitantly, still simmering with irritation. But it's exhausting. I want nothing more than for her to understand the damage she's done. And she may never fully grasp that. All you can do is remain steadfast in your commitment to your kids. You're their protector now. Her words ignited a flicker of strength in him. The price of vigilance had been steep, but the rewards promised even greater fulfillment. Daniel understood this battle was far from over, but amidst the chaos that surrounded them, he had found something powerful, his own place within the definition of family. As the days turned into nights, and those nights morph into anxious wait for the next trespass, Daniel kept his focus on centering his children. He vowed to ensure they felt safe and secure, far removed from the whims of a chaotic world. There was no returning to the past now. It was time to embrace the future. He would nurture the life he was building with Mara, their joy amplifying through moments of quiet strength. When the pain of the past echoed, Daniel found his heart resolute, empowered to face challenges head-on. He recognized that resilience had become his greatest ally. And as their lives intertwined deeper, laughter more abundant, love stronger than ever, he strove to solidify their world, protecting it fiercely from the residue that lingered from his former life. Together, they forged onward into a horizon filled with promise. As autumn painted the landscape in hues of red and gold, Daniel quickly realized that his determination to shield his family from Elise's intrusion needed constant vigilance. The season brought change. It was a time for reflection, growth, and renewing commitments. Days passed with a familiar rhythm, filled with school events, family game nights, and the comfort of Mara's unwavering support. But Elise's attempts to penetrate their lives lurked like shadows at the edges. One crisp Sunday afternoon, Daniel and the kids baked pumpkin cookies, and laughter filled the kitchen as Emma and Jake took turns measuring ingredients, their faces dusted with flour. The rich scent wafting through the house encapsulated the warmth of their shared moments. Amidst the chaos, Daniel cherished this normalcy, savoring the simplicity of being a father engaged in his children's lives. Mara entered, holding her camera, her laughter contagious as she captured the children's antics. "Let's get a family photo," she declared, jostling the kids as they enthusiastically posed with their flour-covered faces. As they embraced the camera, Daniel felt a painful yet beautiful pang of gratitude wash over him. Each captured moment served as a reminder of how far they had come. The doorbell cut through the festive atmosphere, and for a moment, Daniel's heart plummeted. Memories flooded back. Elise's manipulative attempts to reinsert herself into their lives. He exchanged wary glances with Mara before making his way to the door, his heart pounding in his chest. "Stay close," he murmured, a storm brewing in his gut as he opened the door. Facing him was Elise, holding a simple bouquet of flowers, an expression of fabricated sincerity etched on her features. "Daniel, please, can we talk?" she implored. But Daniel's instincts flared. "About what?" he stated, his voice guarded. "This isn't a good time, Elise." "Just give me a moment of your time," she pressed, her tone still dripping with insincerity. Inside, Emma and Jake's laughter faded as they observed their father handling the situation. Biting back frustration, Daniel steeled himself. "You need to leave. I'm not interested in your drama right now. The children are happy with how things are." Elise held the flowers out as if they might hold the weight of her intentions. "They're for the kids. I just wanted to show them that I care," she said. "Show them," he retorted, anger flaring. You show them by being a mother, not by dropping in with flowers when it suits you." "Daniel, please," she pleaded, tears pooling in her eyes. "I'm trying to reach out. I want to do right by them." "You don't get to play the good mother card after everything," he snapped, each word punctuating the history that separated them. The memory of shattered trust echoed in his mind. He wouldn't allow her to manipulate their children again. As if sensing the tension, Emma walked to Daniel's side, her small hand clutching his. "Daddy, who is it?" she asked, innocence cutting through the heavy atmosphere. Daniel turned to her, his heart aching slightly. "Just someone I don't want you to worry about, sweetheart." Elise's eyes flickered, agony contorting her features momentarily. "I'm still your mother, and I love you both," she called out, trying to reestablish herself as a figure of affection, before turning back to Daniel with desperation etched across her features. "Hush, I'm just trying to be in their lives. Why can't you let me?" "It doesn't work that way." Daniel's voice pierced the air, firm and resolute. "You've made your choices, and they've hurt our family one too many times. Respect that you've lost the right to dictate what kind of mother you want to be now. I'm the one caring for them every day." "Don't you dare use them as leverage," she exclaimed, claiming the facade of the indignation. Daniel felt the familiar anger bubble to the surface, fighting to maintain composure. "I'm protecting them from you. This charade has gone on long enough." With that, he turned and closed the door, breathing heavily, relief flooding through him as Emma instinctively hugged around his waist, feeling the tension dissolve within her father's body. What was that about? Jake, now standing in the doorway, looked at Daniel, a mix of confusion and apprehension in his bright eyes. "Well, just some things I'll take care of, kiddos," Daniel said gently, kneeling down to meet them at eye level. "You guys keep having fun. I've got this." Mara approached, her presence steadying. "You're doing so well, Daniel. You honored your boundaries even in the heat of it all," she reassured him softly. "I can't believe she just won't give up," he said, hand raking through his hair with fatigue. "Every time I think I can move forward, she shoves herself right back into the picture." "She will try as long as she sees a way in, but you're resilient," Mara replied, standing beside him, support radiating from her. "You've built this beautiful life. Don't let her cloud what you've gained. Focus on the happy moments right here." Daniel took a deep breath, nodding. He felt grateful for Mara, her calming influence reminding him that this battle was not just his alone. It was a commitment they both shared, creating a loving environment for the kids despite Elise's interference. "I just want them to feel safe and loved," he confessed, the weight of his responsibilities pressing against his heart. But the rewards emerged more vibrant each day, and they reminded him why he had fought so hard in the first place. A few days later, the chaos seemed momentarily abated. Emma and Jake were busy preparing for Halloween, excited about their costumes. Daniel enjoyed hearing them laugh as they stitched and decorated pieces of fabric for their costumes, their bubbling excitement sending ripples of warmth through the house. However, just as they were about to dive into their Halloween festivities, Daniel's phone buzzed with yet another message from Elise. Direct and unyielding, it read, "I'm taking you to court. I want joint custody." Daniel felt a rush of panic surging through him. His heart hammered in his chest as he read the words over and over again, every letter striking a chord of deep, primal terror. He understood that Elise's persistent need for control and acknowledgement seldom waned. "Daniel, what's wrong?" Mara's voice broke through his train of thought, grounding him in the moment. "It's Elise. She's filing for joint custody," he stammered, breath quickening, the reality of her assertion settling in. "After everything she's done, she thinks she can come back and try to run my life again." Mara stepped into his space, concern etched across her features. "Let's take a deep breath. We'll get through this together," she said, squeezing his hand. "Together," he affirmed, grounding himself in her strength. "But I won't let her win. I've got to fight for the kids, to ensure they don't put them through the same hell again." "Absolutely. You've got a case, and we're supportive of your journey. We'll consult with your lawyer and prepare," she assured him, her determination matching his own. As the weeks unfurled, Daniel busied himself assembling everything he needed to counter her claims. He gathered evidence of Elise's erratic behavior, her lack of consistency, and the toll it had taken on not just him, but also their children. Throughout this preparation, his resolve deepened, fueled by the worried yet determined faces of Emma and Jake, who deserved stability and love above all else. Finally, the day of the court hearing arrived, an ominous weight threading through the air. As Daniel walked into the courthouse, he felt heavy yet resolute. He stood firmly at the door, stealing a moment to ground himself. He breathed deeply, welcoming the adrenaline coursing through his veins rather than battling it. He carried the hopes of his children with him. This was about them. Mara joined him, instinctively reaching for his hand, grounding him in her presence as the two walked through together. They made their way to the hearing room and soon faced Elise, who wore the intermediate mask she'd perfected, trapped somewhere between regretful and defiant. As Daniel prepared to face her, he understood that this was a critical moment in their ongoing battle. The truth rested at his fingertips. He steeled himself for the confrontation awaiting him, firmly holding on to the hope that the family he had built with Mara would endure, regardless of the past that lurked behind them. With determination swelling within him, Daniel entered the courtroom. There would be no backing down. He would fight for his children and solidify the foundation of the life he was creating, one built on love, trust, and resilience, a true family where the safe and secure environment would flourish, come what may. As Daniel and Mara entered the courtroom, the tension was palpable, a living entity that filled the space with an almost suffocating weight. The smell of polished wood and old paper accompanied the serious faces of the court officers and the judge, whose gavel would soon bring them into the heat of confrontation. Daniel's heart raced, but he remained resolute, anchoring himself with thoughts of Emma and Jake. They deserved to have a secure and loving environment, free from the turmoil that Elise had brought into their lives. The courtroom buzzed with murmurings as they took their seats. Daniel caught a glimpse of Elise, seated on the opposite side, her demeanor composed, yet tinged with an undercurrent of anxiety. She was wearing a sharply tailored suit, a stark contrast to the chaos she'd wrought in their lives, as if she sought validation through appearance. But beneath her confident exterior was a palpable desperation that mirrored his own silent determination. As the judge entered, Daniel's heart raced. The courtroom hushed, and the gavel echoed sharply, establishing the authority that now presided over their fractured lives. We are here today regarding the custody arrangement for Emma and Jake Carter. Ms. Parker has filed for a joint custody agreement. The judge's voice was calm but firm, as though she could sense the emotional storm brewing beneath the surface. Elise's lawyer took the floor first, presenting their case with practiced ease. Your Honor, my client has a genuine desire to be an active participant in her children's lives. We believe that it is in their best interest to maintain a healthy relationship with both parents. Elise sat, nodding vigorously in agreement, her eyes boring into the judge, as if willing the verdict to shift in her favor. Daniel's attorney stood to counter, firm in her demeanor. Your Honor, while my client acknowledges that Ms. Parker is their mother, we must consider the history of her actions. A history filled with irresponsible behavior that has affected the children's well-being. Since the separation, Daniel Carter has been the primary caretaker, providing a stable and loving environment. Daniel could feel the resolve in his attorney's points, her words a lifeline anchoring him in this tumultuous sea. Every time she emphasized his active role, he felt a spark of hope igniting within him. His determination was palpable. He had nurtured his children, making sacrifices willingly and selflessly. Then came a moment Daniel had prepared for, when it was his turn to speak. He rose from his seat, the room seeming to shrink under his focused gaze. Clearing his throat, he faced the judge, who observed him intently. He opened his mouth, and the words spilled forth, steady and resolute. Your Honor, I firmly believe that shared custody at this point is not in the best interest of my children. Emma and Jake have flourished since the separation. They have been shielded from the unpredictability that characterized our past with their mother, he stated, his heartbeat loud against his ribs. Yet he felt fortified by every ounce of love he had for his children. I understand that Elise is their mother, but I must emphasize her repeated incapability of providing a stable environment. Daniel continued, resolutely drawing from the evidence he had meticulously prepared. There have been numerous incidents where she prioritized her interests over their well-being, late-night outings, dubious acquaintances, and a lack of commitment. These experiences have negatively impacted them. The air in the courtroom shifted, tension palpable as the judge listened intently. Daniel established eye contact with Mara, who offered him an encouraging nod from her seat. He then moved, he felt compelled to share the story alone, punctuating his sincerity with each syllable. In the past months, I have been a loving father, aiding their emotional growth, fostering their creativity, and ensuring they feel safe. I've immersed myself wholeheartedly in their lives. My priority is their happiness and stability. He turned to face Elise, steel in his gaze. Elise, your actions have shown you are not ready to be the steady presence that they need, he said, bearing the truth. I love our children, and my sole aim is to protect them from the havoc that has surrounded our past. As he spoke, he could see the stark realization wash over Elise's face. For once, she seemed caught off guard, her pretense slipping, vulnerability emerging in a way he had never seen before, and it filled him with empathy, but also with a sense of power he'd felt long absent. Elise's attorney jumped in to defend her, but was met with whispers of disbelief from the courtroom, especially from the family support personnel present and the judge, both aware of the tumultuous history she'd brought to their family. The truth hung heavy in the air, seemingly resonating through the whispers among the listeners. "Your Honor," the attorney declared, "Elise is keen on reconciling her relationship with her children. It's been a challenging transition for her, and she's truly trying to be a better parent." Daniel seized the opportunity. Trying is not enough. The children need stability, structure, and a nurturing environment. They have a loving family now with Mara and me, one that supports their growth without the disruption and chaos that Elise's choices incite. This isn't just about what she wants. It's about what they need to thrive. The judge, having observed the emotional tug-of-war, nodded as she turned to Elise. "Ms. Parker, if you wish to gain more custody, you must demonstrate consistent, responsible behavior over time. Trust is earned, not demanded." A flicker of anger surged through Elise's eyes as realization dawned on her. She had been challenged, and this wasn't going as she had envisioned. "But," she started but faltered under the weight of the truth that hung in the air. "No buts," the judge cut in sharply. "This court will require evidence of your capability to be a responsible parent. Until then, the arrangement remains as it is." As the gavel struck, marking the end of that day's hearings, Daniel felt an overwhelming sense of relief wash over him. Although the battle would continue, this was a tactical victory. Mara walked to his side, pride shimmering in her eyes. "You did well," she said, her voice low and steady. "Thanks," Daniel replied, the rush of adrenaline still coursing through him. "I just hope it makes a difference in the long run." In the days following the hearing, Daniel faced ongoing challenges from Elise's provocations, but he remained focused. He knew that winning this battle wouldn't erase the past, but it fortified their future. His children would not be caught in the whirlwind of a toxic environment. They could thrive, and he vowed never to waver in providing the love and stability they deserved. Mara became an integral force in this new chapter, supporting him through uncertainties and commitments to their blended family. As Halloween approached, she helped create a theme that included the kids, a family costume ensemble that united them in joy and love. Their laughter echoed through the hallways, and Daniel felt a sense of peace settling within him. On Halloween night, they embraced the spirit of the season, costumes brimming with creativity and laughter, swirling like leaves in the autumn breeze. The children transformed into characters of their making, and Daniel donned a matching costume to make them feel united under the flickering lights. As they wandered from door to door, collecting candy and sharing laughter, he glimpsed the world around them. Their home was now a vibrant tapestry woven from the threads of love and trust, colors bright against the gray and tumultuous past. It marked the beginning of something new, and for the first time in a long while, Daniel felt reassured. This was how families were built, through love, determination, and the resolute choice to stand against the currents. As they returned home to pattering footsteps and persistent giggles, he felt his heart swell with gratitude. Surrounded by the warmth of their joyful hearts, he understood that together they were overcoming the shadows, once thought insurmountable. They had built something special, and Daniel vowed to safeguard it fiercely. No matter the battles ahead, he would continue to fight for the future he and his children deserved, a life filled with laughter, love, and respect, nurtured in a world far removed from the chaos of the past. As November rolled in, the air grew crisp, thick with the scent of fallen leaves and hot cider. The lighthearted chaos of Halloween faded, replaced by the warmth of family gatherings and the anticipation of Thanksgiving. Daniel found solace in this shift, embracing every moment spent with Mara and the kids, creating cherished traditions that would anchor their newfound family. After the court hearing, Daniel had resolved to prioritize his children's emotional well-being, an endeavor that instinctively forged a deeper bond with Mara. Together, they crafted a plan for the upcoming holiday season, ensuring Emma and Jake felt secure and loved amid the chaos of their previous family life. The day of Thanksgiving arrived, and the house bustled with activity. Daniel and Mara had decided to host dinner for family and friends, inviting those who had supported them through the storms of the past year. The aroma of roasting turkey filled every corner, mingling with the scent of freshly baked pies. The kitchen was alive with chatter, laughter echoing off the walls, scraping away the remnants of anxiety left by Elise's distractions. Daniel glanced around the dining table, a vivid tableau of love and connection. Mara, with her hair loosely tied back, wore an apron adorned with cheerful pumpkins, while expertly putting the finishing touches on mashed potatoes. Emma and Jake joined her, playfully splattering dressing on each other as they prepared to set the table. Their laughter rang out like music, a sound he had grown to cherish, illuminating the heaviness that had once encased their lives. "Do we have enough room for everyone, Dad?" Jake asked, his wide eyes reflecting excitement as he looked at the blooming banquet before them. "Absolutely." "We've got the entire table set for a feast," Daniel replied, feeling warmth spread through him at Jake's enthusiasm. "And we can always squeeze in a few extra chairs," he added with a grin. As they finished their preparations, the doorbell chimed, and guests began to arrive. Friends, neighbors, and those who had offered unwavering support during the tumultuous transition. Each arrival filled Daniel with gratitude, a gentle reminder that though the past had shaped them, it did not dictate their future. Eventually, the group gathered around the table, their faces glowing with anticipation. As Daniel looked over the bounty of carefully crafted dishes, homemade stuffing, sweet potatoes, and pumpkin pie, he felt a rush of pride surge through him. "Thank you all for being here today," and he said, raising his glass. "This past year has been one of challenges and growth, and it's this very support that has made our family stronger. I'm grateful for all of you who stand by us, especially for the love you've given to Emma and Jake." With smiles and cheers, the guests raised their glasses, and the clinking of glasses harmonized with the laughter that filled the room. Daniel felt an overwhelming sense of belonging wash over him, wrapping him in a warm embrace. He glanced at Mara, who smiled back at him, her eyes radiant with joy. Together they had created something beautiful from the ruins of their pasts. Dinner progressed with stories swapped and laughter resonating, but the atmosphere shifted when Daniel caught himself gazing toward the door, unease wavering in him. Elise was out there, a specter casting shadows during what would ideally be a joyful moment. He had worked hard to shield his children, and the thought of her potential interference loomed, uninvited, yet seemingly unavoidable. Time ticked forward, and as the meal settled into merriment, Daniel breathed a sigh of relief. The warmth of his family's embrace strengthened around him, reminding him of all they had forged together. With each anecdote shared, each moment of connection, he reaffirmed his commitment to protect the life they had built, one marked by love, respect, and hopeful intentions. Just as he allowed himself to relax in their togetherness, a sudden knock rattled the door, mimicking the jarring chords of a dissonant melody. Daniel felt the tension spike around him. His heart raced as he exchanged nervous glances with Mara before excusing himself to answer the door. "Stay close," he nudged as he made his way to the entryway, wishing to quell any invasive thoughts that threatened their harmony. Opening the door, Daniel was met with a familiar sight. Elise, standing at the threshold with her head bowed, an unusual expression on her face. She clutched a small pumpkin pie, seemingly an offering, but it felt more like a guise for the emotional turmoil that lay beneath the surface. "Daniel," she started, her voice tinged with an uncharacteristic softness. "I know this might not be the right time, but I needed to come by." "Why now?" he asked, pinching the bridge of his nose in frustration, denying the impulse to invite her inside. "You know we're trying to keep things stable for the kids." "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she pressed, her words catching in her throat. "I messed up. I haven't been the mother they need. The holidays are a time for family, and I don't want to be the outsider anymore." Daniel's instincts kicked in. He wanted to close the door, to protect the world they had built. "Elise, this isn't just about you wanting to feel included. You've put our children through enough turmoil. How can they trust you after everything?" With tears glistening in her eyes, Elise looked down at the small pie she held, a symbol of an effort that felt vastly inadequate. "You're right. I haven't earned their trust. I realize that now." I just wanted them to know I'm still here, that I care. At that moment, part of him couldn't help but feel a flicker of pity beneath the facade of her pain, the same pain he had once wrestled with himself. He hadn't expected her to show up like this, remorseful yet still caught in the convolutions of her past choices. Daniel's heart thudded uncomfortably as he weighed the implications. He knew he had to be cautious. Inviting her back into their lives too soon could undo everything he had fought for. "We're having dinner with people who mean something to us," he stated, maintaining his resolve. "This is your opportunity to change, to show that you can be the mother they deserve. But that starts with establishing a track record, showing consistency. You need to prioritize their needs before your wants." "I know, I understand," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "I can do better. I will do better." "Perhaps it's time to start rebuilding on the right foot," Daniel found himself saying cautiously. "But right now, it's not about you or me. It's about the kids." As he stood there, he realized that he held the power to choose a new path, one that could still lead toward healing. "You can stay, but only if you respect the space we've created. I want them to feel happy and secure." Her expression softened, vulnerable, and for the first time, Daniel saw the cracks in the persona she often maintained. "Thank you, Her voice broke. "I promise to try." Taking a deep breath, Daniel called for Emma and Jake to come to the door. They stepped forward hesitantly, their eyes widening with surprise as they spotted Elise. "Mama!" Emma exclaimed, her voice laced with innocence that tugged at Daniel's heart. "Hey, sweetheart," Elise responded, her voice trembling with a hint of sadness. "I brought a pie for us to share." As they stood there, the kids bouncing in excitement while Daniel felt the tightness in his chest loosen slightly, he understood that starting over meant beginning with open hearts, guarded but willing. The journey ahead still loomed heavy with uncertainty, but perhaps his forward movement was a significant first step. As they eventually ushered Elise inside, Daniel felt a mix of caution and hope threading through the room. Together, they would face whatever challenges arose, while cementing the lessons learned through heartache. He stood firmly, holding on to the precious presence of Mara, a silent reminder that he had not only created a safe haven for his children, but had built a capable partnership forged through perseverance and resilience. As they moved back into the warmth of family with laughter and stories rekindled, Daniel made a silent vow to protect this fragile new beginning. He steeled himself for whatever lay ahead, but for that evening, they would embrace this moment as a step towards healing, hopeful for brighter days to come